Welcome to our first Ninja training. I am super excited to be with you all here today as we are going to dive into writing better code. And I have a really practical conversation to have with you all about what it takes to write really good code. But before we start into this, I would love to see who's on, who is here and participating with us. It looks like my my video is having problems this morning, which is funny. I've actually had a lot of problems this morning, so hopefully I can get that resolved and working well again. It's funny. Good morning, Ayesha. It's good to have you on. Yeah, welcome. Let's see here. Is there? I'm sure there's a few others here. I'm also trying to watch this. Yep, and it died again. All right, let me just try something. Okay. Yeah, that's funny. That's a great way to start off your first Ninja Training live seminars, to be have some technical difficulties with my incoming data connection on my video feed. So that's funny. We will try this and see if this solves the problem. Good morning. All right. Well, I am, again, super excited to hang out here with you for the next 30 minutes, 45 minutes to chat about something that's really been a big deal to me. As you know, this is the day that we're releasing the Art of Debugging. It is available. There was a couple of issues. I got up at 3:30 this morning. There was a couple of issues I found with all my wonderful checkout updates. I actually introduced a few bugs myself, but this is the book is available now, swiftauto.com/art of debugging, or you can just go to swiftauto.com. You can purchase it if you want to be some of the first in line to get your book. But that said, one very important aspect is writing solid code. Writing code that we can keep as many of those bugs out as possible. I wish we were here together. I wish I could see your faces, but I think if we were to do a show of hands, everybody raise their hands. I don't think we like debugging that much. And that was one of the reasons I wrote this book, was so that we can fix bugs as quickly as possible. But this kind of goes a step before that. And it is, how can we prevent bugs from even getting into our system, into the code we write? And it's never going to be 100% foolproof. Like I just said, I was working through some bugs myself. It's just part of the deal. Like, it's just part of writing code, just like writing a document or anything. There is going to be bugs. There is going to be problems. But the question is, what can we do to eliminate as many as possible? For example, if you are writing a thesis, you're going to do as much research as possible, and you're going to make sure you have a good handle on whatever language you're writing the thesis in, so that you're not going to be inserting too many typos, for example. So that's what the goal of this conversation is to grow our knowledge, and especially evaluate these areas of safeguards to prevent problems in the future. So I'm really excited to get into this. Enough of my preamble here. Yes, I see people are in here. Good morning. And so I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'm going to start just so that we have a clean break for those who are watching this after the fact. Good morning, and welcome to the Ninja Training, our first ever edition here in July 2021, just on the heels of the release of the Art of eCommerce Debugging. I am super excited to be here to be able to share some of my thoughts as far as what we can do to eliminate bugs from our code. Before we do that, though, I think it would be good to evaluate a common set of scenarios that regularly happens and see if you relate to this. So it's something that looks like, let's see here, this. Time happens. Time does happen. So over the course of time, we build modules, we add modules, we modify stuff, and there's bugs that start happening. And I was talking to somebody recently, and they said, well, actually, it was 2 years ago, they coined the term gremlins, these evil little things that kind of hang out in your code, and it's incredibly frustrating for merchants. There's things that we can do to help reduce this. Again, the bigger the code base gets, the more gnarly it gets. Every single line of code we write, this is really important to remember, every line of code we write is technical debt. Period. End of story. It is technical debt. I was having a conversation recently with some people, and they were saying, well, I'd love to do this custom thing, and this guy pretty much does everything custom. Fine. Great. But remember, custom is technical debt, and the work there proves that. So remember, time happens, but every line of code that we write is technical debt, which underscores the importance of leveraging every part of whatever system you're building. For me, I'm very familiar with Magento. So instead of going and rehashing the same functionality that's already in Magento, well, we need to utilize what is already there. And I know this sounds incredibly basic, but over and over again, I've had conversations with merchants, I've had conversations with developers. Maybe there's one developer out there that's doing all this, and so we can just blame all these problems on him. But stuff is rebuilt and the existing stuff is not used. So there's your first challenge right there. Reuse existing code. Leverage everything you possibly can, unless you have a significant reason not to do that. For example, performance. And I did a very Magento specific tweet about this the other day about never use product repository, and got some great feedback about that. And so yeah, that was unconventional, but that would be a reason not to use existing core functionality. You have to weigh the trade-offs, the benefits, but it's a performance killer. That was the problem that we were having there. So time happens. But here's the issue. With time, then we get this whack-a-mole thing going. I don't know if you can relate to this. I know I can relate to this. It's really, really bad. So what happens is we go fix the problem, and then this other problem creeps in at the same time. And then we go fix this other that problem that just creeped in, and then, oh, this original thing is back. And it keeps going back and forth. And there's a solution to this problem too. But even this is, well, let me just show you this, is incredibly frustrating to merchants. Incredibly frustrating to your project manager, team lead, your senior developers, whatever. And I think we can all relate to this. It's painful. It's no fun to work through. If we approach coding differently, and for some of us it could be radically differently, your life will be much happier, less stressful. I can't ever say that writing code as an e-commerce developer is stress-free, but it'll be less stressful. And at the end of the day, you'll be very proud of the work you do. So I'm excited to be able to share a few suggestions that I believe will greatly help the work that you do. But I have to say this, that yes, my code still has bugs. As I just said earlier, I am not perfect. I am still on my journey. I am grateful to have the opportunity to write this book. I am still on a journey. And if you ask my team members, I don't write perfect code. I do my best, and I am learning the code. But here's the important point, and another takeaway for you. The code that you write this year should be noticeably better than the code you wrote last year. A great way to review that is just go look at what you wrote last year. If it's like, oh, I wrote that. Ooh, that looks terrible. Yuck. Maybe not to that level of a visceral reaction, but somewhere in there you should be, that shows that you have made progress. And I think to this day, I still have those moments. I go back and it's like, who wrote that? That looks awful. Oh, that was me. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't be so judgmental. It's not a good thing to be judgmental anyways, but either way, my code still has bugs. It is part of the process, and I would like to look at how do bugs happen. I think understanding it from a root level will give us a perspective of what we can do to help better prevent these. So here's a couple that I pulled out, and I'm sure there's more than this, but overall, I think what I want to do is look at some of these here. So number one would be oversights. To be frank, we just missed something. The code does something. We're supposed to do something, and we just missed it. We could have missed that there was another piece that was necessary to make this functionality happen. For example, say adding a total in Magento. Again, I'm very familiar with Magento. There's a number of steps to doing that. Well, maybe you got 3 out of the 4 steps in, but you didn't get that 4th step done. Well, that would come across as a bug in the long run because you ultimately missed that last step. So that's one. Another one would be, well, let me make sure you can see the whole thing here. Copy and paste. Copy and paste is what you would call a frenemy. It is the greatest invention, literally, for computing. And it's also probably one of the most dangerous inventions when it comes to working with code, for example. And I'm sure it's applicable. That's just as dangerous in other areas. But I literally have caused some major problems with me copying and pasting. Major problems. But really, it came back to an oversight. I copied and pasted, but I didn't review the code that I copied and pasted. And there's some antidotes to that that we'll talk about later. But copy and paste. You copy and paste, great, but be very careful. And I also suggest against just copying and pasting stuff you find online. If there's a function or a method, don't just copy and paste that. Just be very, very careful when you do that. Platform incompatibilities. This, again, ties in with experience or inexperience. This is difficult to overcome unless you are actively involved in learning this application. As you dive into it, as you seek to recognize exactly what does what, how does this work, and the best antidote to that, I will tell you now, is Xdebug. I did a free course called Mastering Xdebug. Just do a Google search for that. You can sign up free. But this course will help you get going on Xdebug. So if you are working in an e-commerce platform that is based on PHP, Xdebug is a lifesaver. And according to a survey that I did, I think, if I remember correctly, it was 60% of developers, at least in India, are not using Xdebug. And there's approximately 30% of developers in North America. I've had a lot of conversations, and Xdebug is just, there's a lot of people that just don't even use it and don't know about it. It seems too hard to configure. I would say that was probably true for sure Xdebug 2. I don't know about 1. I don't remember ever using it. Xdebug 3, though, it's a piece of cake to install, a piece of cake to configure. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be just diving into that. This Xdebug has given me probably the most insight or knowledge as far as how the Magento platform works. I don't have an answer to my question. Not a problem. I'm just going to go jump into the code, set a breakpoint, so the execution is going to stop here, and I'll be able to go step through this line by line. That is the best way to overcome platform incompatibilities. Another one is forgetting about dependencies. This is a big one. And it's difficult to overcome unless we overcome one of my greatest deficiencies, and I kind of think it's applicable across the board, and that is our inability, unwillingness, whatever, oftentimes to test. And I say me, but I talk to enough developers, I think it kind of extends out to be a we thing. We like to build code. We love to solve problems. But at the end of the day, we kind of don't like to test our work. And testing our work shows us what dependencies have been missed. So, for example, we are, the problem I just dealt with this morning, a very real problem. So on our swiftauto.com website, we have the checkout. I did some customizations for that. I'm not exactly sure where this was happening, but I wanted to reduce the number of fields one needs to enter if you are doing purchasing a virtual product, like a download, like a study guide or the art of e-commerce debugging in the digital form. And so I ended up, so I created a plugin, the ability, so that I could fill in some placeholder data for the address, because that address is still kind of necessary, but at least we didn't really need it to, it didn't need to be requested from the front end, right? So in the back end, it is viewed as required, But the front end, those fields are gone, and we just put placeholder data into it. Yeah, is it an ideal solution? Probably not, but there's a whole bunch of areas in the Magento platform that are highly dependent on postcode and street address and all that stuff. And if we can just pre-populate this information, it works. So in this case, though, it turns out that the billing address was still somehow created. So for a virtual order, the shipping address was still somehow created, but the values were not there. And I see that I lost my my screen here. So let me just, this is funny. I think it's my adapter from USB to USB-C, I think, is going bad. So so I forgot about that dependency. I completely missed it. And I can't remember. I think I tested that, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I can't remember. So that was definitely an error on my part. Missing paths for business logic. And again, these are some of the bigger bugs. I think the smaller ones fall under some of the categories up the list a little bit. But missing paths for business logic here, getting close to the end of this list. The problem here is when we get too many paths, and I'm going to talk about simplification here in a little bit, but I think that really is the key problem, or the key issue that's going on there. When we have duplication in code, we're more than likely to miss things that happen. And I'll give you an example here in a little bit. Environment failures. These are probably some of the most difficult to troubleshoot. For example, a problem I'm actively working on right now is cron. The cron is on this one particular website, not all websites that I deal with, just this one particular website is crashing constantly. And it has to be the application somehow, but I am really struggling to figure out why this is the case. Maybe later, if I have a minute or two, I'll talk about exactly what's going on. So environment failures are a definite problem. Of course, that inexperience. So inexperience can definitely breed these problems. So with that, here is one of the biggest challenges that I often face. Software feels intangible. So as we're building out a big application, it starts out great, but then it's kind of, by the time we get a month into it, 2 months into it, we start feeling out of control. So how do we solve this? Here is the solutions. Number one, the big picture. And so then we're going to look at the bigger solutions to to bugs, and then we're going to look into more nitty-gritty stuff here in a minute. But the first thing, and I can't stress this enough, is be careful. Me getting in a hurry has cost me a lot. If you're overloaded, time to talk to your manager. I can't complain because I'm my own boss. I'm my own manager. Oh, there we go again. I'm my own boss and manager, so it is what it is. At the end of the day, I have to get it solved, and it's I don't know another way to say it. So problem solved. I have to get it solved. But being careful. And I know none of you need that reminder. It's so easy. We know, okay, we got to be careful. However, it doesn't matter because we always need that reminder once again. So that's the quick, easy one. Here's another one. Don't just look at the bug. Don't just see, okay, where is this bug happening? I'm going to fix this problem. But instead, look at the bug next door. I was making an update yesterday, and something to do with, counting colors. It sounds like a preschool project, and yeah, I guess you could say it was. But counting colors for a particular calculation that I had to do. And this was specifically in adding a feature, but when I made this change, and I thought, okay, that change is good. We'll commit it, push it up, go through the code review process, etc. But then I realized, wait, where else is this code used? Where else is this used? Because ultimately, I ended up changing some input parameters. I went and found where this other code was used, and I ended up finding another bug or two in the process that wasn't even reported yet, which was really good. That's good customer experience. They're not going to have to worry about, hey, reporting this bug in the future, because I found it, I dealt with it proactively. So that's a really great thought. Be circumspectful. Look around. Don't just be laser focused on your ticket, which, yes, you got to solve this problem, but look around and see, how does this fit into the big picture of things? Is there other things that I can tweak in the process? Is there other problems that I run across another bug as I am working on this one? So that's about providing a great experience to the merchants you're working with, etc. Learn the platform as well. That I can't overstate that. XDebug is the key to learning the other platform. If it's BigCommerce or Shopify, read those docs. Be very, very familiar with those docs. That is your lifesaver there. All right, so here's another aspect, and this is one that I have commonly run into myself, and that is bugs don't happen overnight. At least some of them do not happen overnight. You see, the way this works is, well, let me just show you an example. I think that would be the best way to look at this. Here is some code from a project that we've worked on, and this code is less than ideal, if you get what I'm saying. This is a constructor for dependency injection. Well, dependencies are injected through the constructor, and you'll see that we got quite a few dependencies in here. Now, every single one of them is necessary. They're all important. So how would you fix this problem? Well, the solution is quite easy. And that is, well, I had to say the word "the vaccine" because, those are so important nowadays. But the solution is through using the builder concept. So basically what this works out to be is, at the end of the day, with this class that I just showed you, we have one result that we need out of it. And technically in this case, it is an array. We need to get this array out of this class. So we could add all these massive number of dependencies into this one class. Our constructor gets huge and our class is massive, but it works, right? Yeah, it works. Maybe, hopefully. But here's the problem. Number one, it's very large. It becomes unwieldy. Remember that feeling of being out of control? Yeah, you feel out of control. At least I feel out of control. I don't know about you, but I feel very much out of control when I have a big class. Like, I don't know what's going on. Getting in and even understanding what this class is doing is really difficult. So the solution is to break it up. You know, when there's those talk about breaking up tech companies, and I don't know whether that will happen or not. And, it's kind of off and then on again. And, everybody has a different opinion about whether Facebook or Google is good or bad and all that stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if that class was our Facebook or Google, in this case, we need to break it up. We need to bring in some antitrust action, and we need to break this class up into multiple smaller classes. It's actually a lot simpler than you would think. But the question is how we do that. Because ultimately, we could inject, and I don't have an example in front of me, we could have a class to do this and a class to do that and a class to do this and that. And we have like maybe 5, 6, 7 classes. And then, we'll just so instead of, 15 or whatever in classes that we were injecting, we narrow it down to 5. And each one of those 5 will end up calling roughly 3 classes each. And they'll all end up returning the result. But better yet is to use what I call a builder, what is called a builder. Magento makes extensive uses of this. Basically, you'll have an array that's injected, as you saw back here. And I'm in the process of it wasn't something that I was able to do just overnight. So I created these processors, these builders, and what we're doing is we pass an array of objects and we iterate through that array of objects. And I will show you what that looks like. We iterate through the array of objects, we get the values for it, we assign it to the array. It's super easy, and each one of those objects then becomes uniquely responsible for exactly what it's doing. So instead of having 15 classes that we're injecting into one constructor, we could have 5 builders or processors. We could have 2 processors, 15. It doesn't matter. Every one of those is responsible for providing specific pieces of information to the end result. Now, one thing you might be saying, though, is, but what if I need to modify this information? So, for example, I don't like how this specific piece of data is coming out. I need to tweak it in this specific circumstance. Well, again, in Magento functionality terminology, and I know in Shopware and everything else has similar concepts, use a plugin. You could create an event observer, those sort of things. Use something to provide an external hook into the output for that builder. And as such, then you can take the results and you modify it and you pass it out to the front end or wherever these results are going. But this results in, no pun intended, pun intended in this case, it results in we can have as many possibilities as we want. Each one of these pieces is easily modifiable. So you could, again, in Magento terms, you could put a plugin against each one of these separate builders or data processors, whatever you want to call it. It becomes super easy to do this. And all you have to do is create a interface. Usually that interface will have one method, one public method, and pass whatever information you need, and you're ready to go. In this case, all I'm doing is passing 2 variables in there. Order art item reference and order art item. Returning it out and calling it a day. It's super easy to do. And as such, this is easily cascadable. We can modify it, etc. So that is one very important point. Consider using builders anytime your constructors get too big. Now here's another point though. Avoid duplication. I find that duplication happens when our classes are too big or our methods are too big. When duplication happens, we are obviously not only doubling the possibility for problems in our code, we're also duplicating we're causing the possibility of us not understanding or we're missing. What am I trying to say here? There's the possibility we will miss this other completely parallel but separate duplicated code when we're fixing or making updates. So for example, let's say we have 2 different ways to add products to the cart, 2 different web API calls to add products to the cart. One was added 5 years ago, and it might be used in a couple scenarios, but now this other one is the one we mostly use all the time. Maybe not, whatever. So we make our modifications to the new one, but we forget that the old one is there, or still present, and it's still used in some circumstances. So instead of going in, updating the code to force all calls to go to the new add to cart method, we're leaving them on the old one, which we continue to build out the new one. The old one essentially becomes a bug. And so that level of duplication will cause bugs. But that said, the biggest reason I find that for duplication is literally thanks to, there we go again, is literally thanks to classes that are too big, methods that are too big. So the goal is to reduce those values the classes and the methods as much as possible. The other issue is just even finding that you did something in the past. I find my memories a month or less, I would say about a month. I remember I built this out. So that brings up another very important comment, and I was going to make this later, but I will jump ahead and I will say this now, and that is to name things well. I'm going to show you, let's see here, where is this? Here we go. I'm going to show you this my SwiftOtter code base here. And while I am no master of naming things, I want to point out some concepts that I think will make your life easier when it comes to naming. So for example, these are things we've recently built. I mean, they're really brand new. The whole checkout experience is new. Again, trying to accommodate physical shipments, etc. But what I work to do is I name everything based off of its function. What frustrates me is I get into code bases and I see, for example, plugin /sales/order.php. I have to click into that plugin and say, what the heck does this do? I have to say, why is this? Oh, okay, that's an after place order plugin. Now, what is it doing? Versus, I create my plugins one for each individual purpose. And you'll notice here, if I come into, I think it's here, yep, quote management, I literally have 3 plugins in the same module, but each one of them does something different. Now, you could argue, say, hey, Joseph, that's a little too much. And sure, I would accept that, definitely. That's totally fine. I get that. It could be a little bit on the too much side, but at some point, one thing to consider would be to slightly group these by having one layer of directory. So if it would be plugin /checkout / whatever one of these checkout ones would be, register customer and checkout, right? So plugin checkout. So it kind of groups that, and that's what we've done in some projects where we get too many plugins in a directory, etc. But the plugins keep those small. And in fact, what I say, and wow, this is going downhill as I speak, which is funny. I'm going to try something else here. One thing that I often like to do is, well, actually, I missed my train of thought on that one, so I will, well, let me see here. Take 1 second to adjust this. We'll see. Maybe this will solve the problem. Anyways, yeah, all right, so we should be good again. All right, and let me know if my voice is out of sync. If it is, let me know, and I will figure something else out. So the one thing that I found to be incredibly powerful, really, really powerful, in Magento 1, there was the concept of helpers. Helpers were not a favorably looked upon thing in Magento 2. And yet some people still use them. Actually, I find them used quite regularly. I like this concept of actions. Actions is single pieces of business logic. So in this case, build by request from details. And you'll notice this is a very small method. It takes this, but you know what the cool thing is? This is a public method. I can create a plugin for this, a before and after plugin. I can change whatever information I want to change about this. Super easy in whatever module I need to. This is a small method, and you could say maybe this is too small. It could be. But again, if I need to use this in 2 or more locations, it's centralized right here. I don't have to worry about this again. This is one spot for bugs. It's not 2 spots or 5 spots or however many spots this code could be copied. This is really powerful. So in some of our projects, we built out literally, well, I'm thinking of one module. We had to start grouping those. I think we're up to 50, 75 actions. Each of those actions is small. It's simple. We can inject that action. We can use it, and we're done with it. It's so simple. I think I have, I got another one here, configure billing address. So this one is getting a little bit, maybe too much, but I think this was more because, this was existing. This was old code. I wrote this a year or 2 ago. So you have to give me some grace on this one. Let's see here, checkout. Let's see, what was another one I worked on recently? Downloadable product. This was a fairly recent, here's a recent one. So trigger order webhook. Call our execute method. We pass in the order interface and the incoming order interface details. And actually, this was the one I just built the other day because we need to pass in that order and the order item. We send it out and makes it pretty easy. This helps us if something is shared, we're able to pass it off and share it as expected. So actions are a big key, or call them whatever you want. But I call them actions, business logic. They are a huge key to reducing duplication across your code base. You can tell I'm kind of passionate about that because, yeah, the idea of just in action, I can comprehend that. There's a lot of big developer speak that I still struggle with after 10 or 15 years in the industry. I still struggle with. It just doesn't make sense to me. But actions, yeah, I can wrap my mind around that. That's good. All right, let's dive into being a little more specific on the code side. Cyclomatic complexity. Cyclomatic complexity, in other words, is the number of indents. That's the easiest way to put it. I'm sure there's a way more technical, I know there's a way more technical definition than that, but the number of indents. And I think we're all guilty of this one. This makes code very hard to read, and the point is that code that's hard to read is hard to debug, and it's also hard to prevent bugs from getting in there. Cyclomatic complexity. The easiest antidote to this is to, well, let me back up. Let me put it this way. If you're in a dating relationship, wouldn't you rather know right away whether or not this is going to work out as opposed to 6 months or a year or 5 years down the road as to whether or not this is going to work out? Most people do. So the sooner you can say no, the better. Now look at this. We have, and let me just pull out let me just pull something up here, and yeah, here's a great example. Say no as quickly as possible. Burn that rule into your mind. If this data is set, or if it's not set, or if this is not an object, if the extension attributes is not an object, we're going to return the response. Otherwise, we're going to set the password and then we're going to return it. So yes, you will have multiple return statements in a given method, but at the end of the day, your code remains flatter. You can see the immediate exit points, which I think is probably the biggest deal, the best thing that this solves. You're able to see the exit points. And so parsing code faster means you are less likely to have bugs. Really important there. So get out of this, say no as quickly as possible if your code should not be processing whatever this business logic is. Say no as quickly as possible. Another thing is type hint all the things. I think we could probably pull together a meme pretty easily on that one. Type hint all the things. Now let me pull up my Chrome here. There we go. Type hint everything. I find that this allows you to spot issues quicker and easier. And yes, I will say that it does cause some other issues if you're working with other code that's been poorly designed, poorly built. But type hinting allows us to ensure that the values that we're working with are constant. And I think the biggest issue is integers versus floats. Having a decimal places versus no decimal places could really add up if you're doing then multiplication on top of it. If someone's ordering 1,000 products at 199 and somehow it gets that 99 gets dropped and we're down to 1, that's almost $1,000 difference in the final value. So type hint everything, and to demonstrate that here, where is that? For some reason, I wonder if that's actually showing up on my screen behind me. That's funny. All right, so and actually, I noticed as I was talking earlier, I noticed that I did not type hint this. Plugins could be an exception, I think. Possibly that's something just to keep in mind, because depending on how the previous example was, or if the previous code was written, it could return multiple things. But ultimately, the rule for type hinting then is that your code should always return the same type. It returns either an integer, or you could obviously put the question mark in front of it to return a null. So for example, we would just say payment or null. Either way, we type hint this. It's kind of a form of testing without actually writing integration tests on this. So question mark payment or payment, this or null. And where it becomes particularly interesting is I'm going to come up into catalog model, resource model, product message. Where it becomes particularly helpful is so here is a SQL query pulling from a table that I created on our website, getting messages, country-specific messages, and I return a string or not. So, but what's really important here is we want to cast this to a string. Technically, it's not necessary because I think this method always returns a string, but for consistency's sake, for building patterns in my mind, I still cast it to a string. I don't think there's any performance impact whatsoever, or I return null, and I do this type check. The one other thing I'm going to pull out here is we could also do fetch column, and we want to make sure we're returning, let's say we want to return an array of integers. What we can do is return array map and int val. So this is going to cast it over to an integer, but we can also do then array filter value. So let's see here. Where's my error here? Oh, that's because it's incompatible. All right, we just do this. Here we go. Okay, so this code will allow us to return an array of integers, which, yeah, I wish PHP had that functionality that we could just specify, I don't know, something like this, and we can return an array of integers. But as of, I don't think even PHP 8 even allows that at this point. So put this back together there. So this is a way to return a list of integers from a SQL query. Is it pretty? By 100% definition, no. It's ugly. But I think this will help save us bugs from experiencing bugs in the future. All right, use constants. That's another thing. I find that bugs start happening, and these are kind of difficult bugs to detect when we are, say, for example, assigning data back and forth, like in a model or something, and that data is, we're referencing column names, but what if it's singular versus plural? Yeah, that would be easy to miss. So using constants for that, using constants for attributes, any type of identifier. Magento does this quite a lot, and there's probably going overboard here, yeah, but use constants in any way that you possibly can. I talked about naming, but one aspect of naming is I've seen a general aversion to creating new classes. Create classes. In fact, I use the term be eager to create new classes. I mean, again, don't create a class if you find that there's no value to creating a new class just for the fun of creating classes. That's not valuable or beneficial. But anytime that you see the possibility of you needing to use code elsewhere, create a new class. As opposed to, okay, should I copy this code out? Maybe I'll copy this. No, don't copy the code. Create a new class. Preferably, classes should have one public method. And in fact, borrowing from the MSI principles, Magento's multi-source inventory principles, how they build that, I know there's a lot of different opinions on that, but it's one public method per class. That's easy to test, my friends. That's super easy to test. So create classes, be eager for that. I had to show you this. This is a 75-line method, and I couldn't even compact it all into this screen. It's difficult to read. It doesn't use standard code formatting. There's no new lines. There's bugs that are likely hiding in here in plain sight, simply because the developer didn't take the time to at least break up the method or throw it into separate classes. So keep that in mind as you are working. Ideally, a method should have 15 to 20 lines. There could be some cases where you exceed that, but pretty much anytime you exceed that, it's better to shrink those methods down. Now here's a weird, oopsie, I didn't show you that. So here is that part of this 75-line method. I'm not making fun. I'm not poking fun at this developer. I know they were doing their best, but that's why I'm doing this training, so I can make you all the better of a developer. So if you were the one that wrote this, again, no judgment whatsoever, but what you're hearing today should help you as you're going forward to create solid applications. One thing I saw in there as I was just looking at this is referencing arrays, specific keys in arrays is a great way to experience errors. Be careful when you do that. Whenever you reference a specific key in an array, make sure you always call isSet first. And in fact, you probably saw this when we were, where was that? I had seen this in one of our methods we were looking at. Copy register. Yeah, right here. I knew I'd seen this. So so I'm checking to see if the extension attributes is both isSet and it's an object. So it's there and it's an object, and now we can work with it. So I reversed out that logic there. One other, this is the tiny code, this code thing, but well, actually two things, as you see right here. Make sure your line links aren't too long. PHP Storm has a little white gutter on the right side that'll help you see exactly how long there are. Break it up. Some people say you should never have more than two or one arrow on a line. I don't know. I usually do 2 arrows. Again, it's readable code is code with less bugs. The other thing is, anytime you're doing an if statement with multiple conditions in there, put each condition on a new line. Again, it just makes it more readable. Let's see here. All right. Here we go back there. Oh, so this is the abstract concept that I wanted to talk to you about. I find that and this is not scientific, so don't think that I'm saying this is like the way to do it, but anytime we can pass information into a class, I find that class feels more self-contained. Like this is this one unit of functionality where this is this one method. This is all that it needs in order to be happy, in order to live. So what this means is that we, in some cases, could be offloading our dependencies into more of one constructor and then passing the results into other classes. And there was one case, and I kind of shudder to say this, but I'm still not aware of a better way to do this. That literally it was a ton of calculations. Each calculation was split out into its own separate class. But I had loaded all of those into this one constructor. As I'm thinking about this now, I think we could have used dependency injection and array, some type of system there, have like an initializer method on each class. That probably would have worked better, so we didn't have to have all those dependencies injected into that one place. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that code was existing, and then it was passing values into each calculator. That calculator was totally self-contained. And the cool thing is about anything that's self-contained, it's easier to test. When you have to reach out and fetch information from some other place, it's more difficult to test. And I know you're probably hearing me say these words of testing. It's really, it's kind of, it's an aversion to it. It's like, oh, really? Testing? Come on. I hate testing. I've never written an integration test in my life. Don't worry. We're not going to go through that pain today. But my next training will be about testing. In fact, it is such an important need. I probably am, well, I am, probably nothing. I am working towards creating a course about writing integration tests. And the key point to writing integration tests, or unit tests for that matter, is it is literally impossible to write unless you have followed the principles that I have talked about. That's where it all comes together. And in fact, what really drove all this stuff home for me is when I forced myself to start writing integration tests. Now, I'm not going to say I write integration tests for everything. There's some days I don't write any integration tests. It's a constant thing that I'm still working on. And Simon, you were in here. You told me that you recently did a project where you did a ton of integration tests, and absolute kudos to you. It is a work in progress. It is a thing I am still learning. It is by no means something that I am there yet. But it is all these concepts that come together at the end of the day makes something that you can actually test. If you have a long method, if you have a tremendous number of dependencies in a constructor, it is impossible to write any type of integration test for that. Guaranteed 100%, no questions asked. It is impossible to write, well, okay, I shouldn't say impossible. It's almost impossible. Like, it is mind-bogglingly difficult. You sit down and like, okay, I have to try to assemble all this information, but if you break it down into classes that are this size, it's easy. It is easy. So we'll talk about testing. We will talk about testing. I will tell you what I have learned about this testing. We're not going to get into it today, but I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit more about that here in the future. It's way easier than you think, but there's a stigma associated with it. And my goal is to overcome that stigma and to show you how revolutionizing this will be. You know, I talk about this book being revolutionary, and I 100% believe it is. The course that I wrote about mastering XDebug, I should publish some of the mail that I've gotten about that. It makes my day every time I see that type of comments. And if I can convince people to use this course about integration testing that I will write here later this year, I'll get the same piece of mail. The problem is, from a business perspective, actually showing people how necessary it is. So all that to say, I am really excited about this, my friends. Thank you for joining in. We'll take a questions and answers. This is what I want to talk about here for today. Again, there's a lot more we can cover, but I think if you work through this, you're going to get so much value out of this. You will be a better developer. You will write better code that's easier to understand, and then you will be ready to start writing integration tests. And that was the big blocker for me. The code I was writing was not ready to be tested. It was almost impossible to be tested. Write code that is possible to test, and then you can test it. So that was step one. It was great having you all here. I'm open for questions. If anybody has questions, I will take questions for a few minutes, and then we will sign off. And I'm sure all of you have a little bit of work to do. And for some of you, I think some of you I recognize are from India, and you need to get to bed, I think. So, at least if I was staying up, let's see, you're 11 and a half hours ahead of us. So that's almost midnight. That's late. So anyways, any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And again, just to remind you, this book is for sale today. It is free shipping anywhere in the world. I will say, though, that there are some taxes and duties, depending on where you are, that you will have to cover. And we are working to cover as many of those as possible. The whole EU value-added tax stuff ended up being a bit of a broadside for us. So we are working through that. And but it is also available as an ebook. Again, this book is beautiful. So I definitely recommend get the book. It feels good. There's comics in it. I guess there's comics in the other hardcover too, but this is great. Oh, Yogesh, great question. He said, "What is the color scheme for your PHP Storm?" Yes, this is. Let's see here, just so you get the right one. Material theme UI is what I use. Looks like I owe it an update. It says paid, but I can't remember paying for it. So maybe it's now paid, maybe it's now something, but I like it. It looks nice. I have the dark color scheme on there. I feel like this is easier on my eyes. I think it is, at least. So I have the dark color scheme, but yeah, so I use a material theme. Oh, yes, you said it's 9:30 p.m. Okay. Somehow I guess it's almost 11 here. So yeah, that would make sense. Thank you. Good thoughts. All right. Well, I'm not seeing too many questions, so hopefully this just really made a lot of sense, or maybe you've already mastered all these concepts anyways. And if that's the case, fantastic. I would love to hear from you all. Drop in the comments. Oh, and I should say this for those of you that are still listening, make sure to subscribe. Click that subscribe button and the bell so that you'll see when we're coming out with new live training. And I try to put out a whole bunch of videos. We got another one coming about finding errors, troubleshooting errors in Magento. That was a raw take. So I was working on the swiftauto.com website, and I ran to that area. I was like, oh, I got to create a video on this because this is really good. So, and if there's other things that you want me to do training about, investigate, whatever, I am all ears. Like I want to be this, my goal is literally I have two goals. I help merchants, but I want to make you developers as absolutely successful as is possible. Vivek said you need more information about the course. What course? So there's obviously certification courses. The Art of eCommerce Debugging will have an associated course. That is not done yet. It is in the works, and it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be really good. I am super excited about this. The approach I'm taking is consistent with my previous approaches, but it basically takes the concepts that I talk about in this book and gives you very hands-on experience with solving those type of problems. So yes, you will find it very valuable and beneficial. Again, swiftauto.com/art of debugging or art of e-commerce debugging. That will also do it. Yes, the debugging course. So the book is available. It is for sale now. You can get the PDF or the hardcover, whatever you would like. And but the course associated with that is not available yet. And I realize I might need to make a little update to the website, as that might not be 100% clear yet. So yeah, I might need to tweak that. Yogesh said, have you ever tried PHP XH Prof? I have not. I have heard of it, but I have never tried it. So I will definitely look into that, because I will tell you this, that Xdebug is slow, and it's way faster in Xdebug 3 than Xdebug 2, but Xdebug 3 is still slow. It's about 30% of the speed, 30 to maybe 50% of the speed as it is turned off. So yeah, that's frustrating. And in some cases you turn it off, you refresh the page, and you turn it back on again. And that's actually one of the big values I've seen in integration tests, and I forgot to say this earlier, is that it allows you to bypass this whole stupid, I hate it. Maybe you guys like it. I hate it, refreshing the page. Just hate it. At least for us backend developers, allows us to completely bypass that, because we can just hit a button and it runs in the background, and it'll tell us whether it works or not, and we can run it again. It's pre-set up. It's just beautiful. Like Simon says, once you go see the light of day testing, you will never go back. However, the confession I have for that is, yes, I've seen the light of day, I've gone back, but boy, it's hard to go back. And then I do have these type of flip-flops, but I'm definitely coming back on the train. So it's good. It's good. Yes, only enabled Xdebug when you need it. 100% right on there, Simon. Totally agree. Sunit, are we planning to create a course for writing integration tests? 100%. Yes, absolutely. Biggest problem, again, is convincing people that they need it. So it's not an issue with this book. Everybody agrees that debugging is challenging, and if we can do better, then yeah, that's really important. But integration tests, it's just, we kind of hate them, and they've had a reputation, but my goal is to show that reputation is not warranted anymore. It used to be, I think, but not anymore. Magento 1 days, yes, it was. Niha, is the book available as a soft copy? Yes, it is available as digital version, so it's an EPUB and a PDF file that you download once you purchase it in that way. But it is free shipping anywhere in the world. So no matter whether you're in India or Europe or Asia or South America or anywhere, free shipping. And yes, that costs us a lot, but it makes a big difference. Yogesh, what do you think about profiling using New Relics? Absolutely, 100%. New Relic is a great piece of software. I'm not talking about that much, because my goal is to talk about today writing, let's just say bug-free code. That's an oxymoron, but my goal is to talk about that. But yes, we'll definitely be reviewing New Relic in future trainings and how to leverage that. And I just recently saw, maybe I'm just hiding under the rocks somewhere, but I just saw that New Relic is now free for certain tiers. Maybe they had competition. I know they've been having competition, but it's now free for certain tiers. I was like, wow, we're going to get this installed on all of our websites, which is really cool. I'm stoked about that. Very good. I show it's 11 a.m. my time. It's been an absolute pleasure having all of you here today. Thank you for joining. And I'm looking forward to next month. And again, feel free to reach out to me. Join our Slack community. We have links on our website, and send me an email. I'll be happy to get you an invite here. And I want you to participate, ask questions. It is a really vibrant, it's a wonderful community, and I'm incredibly proud of every person that is in the community. I have wonderful people like Simon, and I actually think a couple of other I think Yesha, you're in that community too. I think actually a number of you are in that community, but I can't specifically remember. It's the more active ones that I recognize. So anyways, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to chatting next month. Continue on the conversation about this Ninja series.